going to take my mind down into my toes. I'm just going to step a little bit further back, make sure you can see me. Give my toes, excuse me, a little wiggle. And I'm looking at my toes, making the connection between my head and my toes. And I've got a lovely alignment. So I'm thinking about really pulling up on the insides of the legs. And if I was to bend my knees, that they're tracing the same line as my toes. So that feeling of a tram line. And we're going lifting all the way up through the knees, through the hips, through the tummy, each rib, right up to the shoulders, right up to the ears, and then it's like your head is floating and it's just placed on the shelf. Drawing the shoulders down without extending the rib cage. Let that all go. Relax in your glutes. I have a tendency to tense everything. I think it's the dancer in me. So I'm really trying to find that happy place where gravity's doing all the work. Lovely. So let's get some work going on our core. Let's get that engaged. So we're going to take that belt and draw it in, that extra notch, pulling it in as tight as we possibly can until it almost takes your breath away. All the way up as tight as you can. And then letting it go to about 50%. And then another, back down to about 25%. And then let it go. Let the glutes go. Let the knees go. Let the hips go. Nice and relaxed. Let the shoulders go. Notice if you carry any tension in your jaw as well. And then we're going to do it again. So we're going to draw that imaginary belt in. Really see it in your mind's eye. Close your eyes if that helps. Draw it in, draw it in, draw it in as much as you can right around the whole of your senses. So don't forget about those muscles holding up your back and around the sides. And then let it go to 50%. And then finally to about 20%. And then just let that be there and just recognize how that feels. We're going to move our mind into our pelvic floor. So drawing that in nice and tight. We all know what we're doing. So we're drawing it right up as tall as we can, all the way to the penthouse. And then letting it go down to about 50%, about halfway. And then about to 25% again. And then let it all go. Oh, yeah, nice. Have a little wiggle. Let that tension go. Don't hold any tension in those glutes. And so we're going to draw in that core, that belt, just to where you had it before, about that 25-30%. So find that feeling, just that gentle engagement, just that gentle tug. And then pull your pelvic floor right up to that top penthouse suite. Up, 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 up. Admire the views up there. Woo! And then let it go to about 50%. And then a tiny bit more to about 25%. And just feel what that feels. That feels nice. Shoulder blades are down into the back. Fingers are long. Neck is long. Chin is on the shelf. Lots of movement in the head. So gently moving your head very slowly. Saying yes with your head. Nice and easy. Taking in everything that's in your lovely spaces at home. Really seeing the room that you're in. Every nook, every cranny. See if you can notice anything that you never noticed before. Surprising how we get used to our normal spaces and we take it all for granted. And then we bring it back to the center, and then we're gently saying yes with that. So really light gaze up towards the ceiling, and then tracing all the way down towards the floor. So not quite dropping your head back, and not quite getting your chin towards your chest, but definitely being able to gaze downwards to try and see towards your toes, or obviously your mat, and make that one the last one. Very nice. So we're going to take some shoulder rolls this morning. So shoulders, then our elbows, then the whole arm, and we're coming all the way down into a nice squat, and we're going to imagine we're holding that log. So I'm going to just take my feet a bit wider actually. I was a bit too narrow. So I'm feeling like I'm holding a big log, and then I'm gently coming to standing. To repeat. Shoulders, elbows, really open out the chest. Arms, really lengthening, sending my bum back, cupping into like grabbing onto that log shape, dropping my chin slightly, sending my bum back. If you can wiggle your toes, that's awesome. That means your weight is all in your heels. Then push into your heels as you breathe out to stand up. Really feel that power in the legs. And again, breathing in. Pulling in that nice tight feeling in your tummy, sending your bum back, grabbing hold of that log. Chin is tucking in, toes are slightly lifted, so all your weight's in your heels. Pulling that pelvic floor up and then pushing through the heels as we breathe out and push down. To stand up. Oh yes, feeling that today already. Shoulders, elbows, arms, pressing back, grabbing hold of that log. Sending my tail back, bum is sticking out, loud and proud. Tuck that chin in, wiggle those toes. All lots to think about. Then pressing through the heels as you breathe out to stand up. Feeling really strong. One more of those. That's lovely. Nice, big. It's like you're giving yourself a lovely massage when you move your shoulders like that. Tail goes back, toes are lifted. Holding onto that log, just drop your chin. So it's imagine you're holding like an orange underneath your chin. So you've got a nice alignment of the spine. Draw the shoulder blades down as well. And then finally pushing through the heels as you breathe out to stand up. Very nice, excellent. Give that a little shake. I'm going to take it out to my feet pointing towards the corners. Yes, hands on the hips. So nice, gentle. No, we always call them pliés, but I'm sure they're just called squats, something really dull in Pilates. It's far more exciting calling them pliés. So we're going straight down and straight up. So I want to imagine that you're sliding down a wall. So you're really trying to keep every part of your back from your shoulders all the way down your spine, allowing for that natural curve, but then to your tailbone, as if you're sliding straight down a wall. So really notice if you feel that your shoulders are dipping forwards ever so slightly, or your bum is tipping backwards. So to counteract that, almost feel like you're leaning back a little bit, and don't go too far. So don't go so far that you feel like your knees are having to roll in. You want weight in your little toes. You want to be pushing back here as you're moving through that position. So very nice, sliding action, down, down, and breathing out to come up. In to go down, out to come up. So nice and controlled. Really think about where those shoulders are, staying in line with the hips. So really try to recognize if you're slightly tipping forwards and letting your rib cage tuck down. That's lovely. So we're keeping going on that nice, easy rhythm. And then we're going to build it up a little bit. So my arms are going to come out. We're going to keep those arms there. We are going to work on the arms today. This I could regret. Very soon I could be regretting this. But hey ho, I will carry on regardless. So we're going down, down, up, up. And as you're coming up and you're breathing out, imagine you're pushing through your heels and breathing, pushing the floor away through that breath. Really helps your legs to engage. Think about your shoulders not creeping in towards your earlobes. Don't make your shoulders as earrings. Nice long neck like a giraffe. Weight is also in your little toes. So if you're not sure, you can lift your toes ever so slightly and you'll feel your balance go somewhere else. And it's a really good way of just feeling where you feel your body should be to find that balance, just flexing those feet. So the next one, we're going to take it all the way down. We're going to leave it there. And then we're going to lift one heel and up. We're going to stay down and do the other one. And we're going to keep going like that. So think about drawing your shoulder blades down towards the bottom of your back. Keep that back. So imagine your shoulders are pressing against the wall behind you, as well as your hips. Chin is on a shelf. Think about that pelvic floor just pulling in ever so slightly with a notch on the belt. We're going to do 4 more. You're doing really well. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Breathing in, breathing out to stand. Ooh, mother of God. That was good. Hello, legs. So I was worried about my arms, now I'm more concerned about my legs. Okay, everyone all right? We're going to go straight down into our roll down. We know exactly what we're doing here, so we can just chip through this bit. I'm going to move Tina out that way, which we can see all right. Yes. Okay, So nice roll down. Everybody who's here tonight has done this many, many, many times. So we can go straight into it. But before we begin, just finding that nice alignment. So all your weight is on your feet. You're not forwards. You're not backwards. You're really, really centered. Think about the insides of your feet lifting slightly. So there's almost like a little blueberry in the arch of each foot. So you're lifting up the arch of the foot. So you're really getting that sense of lengthening on the inside of the legs. Drawing your notch of your belt in. Drawing your pelvic floor gently up and inside. Shoulders are down. Chin is on a shelf. We take a nice deep breath in. And our chin drops as we breathe out. And we let the weight of the head pull us down. And I always think that the first one of these is the one where you go, oh lordy lord, goodness me. Especially if you only get to do this particular exercise this one time a week. So I'm getting myself into that, this is gonna cane, into that nice box shape. I'm breathing in and out, and in. And out. Yeah, I'm going to go with the press-ups, haven't caused me aching, nothing else. And then I'm thinking about that lovely cup of tea, sat very carefully on the base of my spine as I gently come back. Find that lovely full body stretch, tuck my chin into my chest as I slowly uncurl, really forcing it into slow motion. Imagining every vertebrae getting its turn. Finding that nice alignment as you stand up to repeat. Breathing in and out. Nice, heavy, heavy, heavy. Tuck that chin in towards the chest. As far as you can gently go. Be soft in the knees. Try and find where you're feeling comfortable. Super careful on the way out. Keeping your pelvis very, very still. Keeping that cup of tea in line, ready for 9:05. We're breathing in and out. Remembering as you press down, your nose is in front of the tops of your fingers, and each of my hands, they're really splayed. I've got all 5 digits really wide, and very carefully controlling that pelvis. Very little movement. As still as I possibly can, tipping over, folding like a piece of paper. Chin is right on my chest, I'm looking at my knees. As I uncurl, I'm keeping my focus at my knees for as long as I possibly can. So the last thing to come up is my head. Wow, lovely. I think we'll do 2 more of those. So, like I always say, you're very welcome, if this is a bit slow, to cram in a couple more and go a little bit faster. You can also obviously do more presses on the end if you fancy it, or you can do presses that aren't with your knees on the floor. You can do a full press. I'm going with tricep dips because I'm lunatic, but that's mostly because that's what my space allows. So make sure you definitely tailor this for whatever you like. Okay, so I'm now going to be on my last one, so I'm going to make it my bestest. Take a nice breath. And down I go. So really letting the head, then the shoulders, the fingers become very heavy. It's like they're magnetized towards the floor. Drawing down, relaxing, relaxing, relaxing as far as I can stretch and giving in to that stretch. Slowly taking myself out. That lovely box shape, really spreading out each of my hands. Nice breath in. Sending the floor away using my breath. Last one for me. And then relaxing my toes, just separating my knees ever so slightly, sitting back into child's pose. So wherever that is comfortable for you, resting your head down towards your mat, forehead if you can. And don't be afraid to have a little wiggle or move your head from side to side, whatever feels nice, stretching the fingers out in front of you, taking a nice deep breath in, filling the lungs, and breathing out. And again, nice deep breath in, and out. Very good. Right, you can stay there if you like whilst I discuss what we're doing next, or you can have a little drink. Oh, that felt nice. We're going to do a little bit, excuse me, the cat one. Last week we did it on the corner, didn't we? Oh, why don't we do that? I quite like the corner cat. So we'll do the corner cat, because I quite like that one. And then we're going to do some Supermans as well before we do our bits and bobs with our legs. So let me get this right. So I'm in a nice box shape, making sure that my knee and hip are in a nice alignment. I'm using my reflection in my piano that you're sitting on. And I'm going to take my hands, imagine there's a nice arc shape around my body. I'm taking my hands slightly out to trace the line of this arc to wherever I can comfortably go, but keeping my weight in this far away hip. And then when I get there, I'm going to go into our cat position, cat camel. So I'm going to breathe to really hyper curve the back, chin is lifted. And then I'm going up, taking my belly button up towards the ceiling, tucking my chin in towards my chest on that corner. So really getting some length down the side of the body. So we're breathing in. And the head lifts, really arching the back, shoulders are down, looking up. And breathing out. Tucking up, pulling that belly button in towards the spine, chin in the chest, and then letting it go. Really finding the movement in the base of the spine. And again, taking it up. And one more of those. So really forcing that arch of the spine, shoulders are down, pressing into the heels of my hands. Relaxing in the pelvis. And then tucking back under again. Very nice. And then staying on that corner, but coming back to a neutral, we just do 4 little presses. So I'm sending my bum back, and up, and out. Breathe in on the up, and out on the down. And one more of those. And out. Coming back up to neutral position. And then I'm going to walk my hands round to do the same thing on the other side. So notice how my hands aren't underneath my shoulders anymore. They're slightly out. I'm just going to have to shift myself slightly on my mat so I can get a good arc going on. Making sure there's still weight in this hip that's the furthest one away from my hands. And I'm just finding that first arch, drawing the shoulders down as I gently lift my chin. And then pulling the belly button up to reverse the action, tucking my chin in towards my chest, looking right down towards my legs, and then reversing it. So make sure that your hips are right above you. Try not to sit back. So try and make sure that your hips and knees are stacked one on top of the other. And finding that breath. So breathing in. Really force that arch, shoulders are down, and breathing out. Sort of almost looking out under my armpit, to be honest. One more. Shoulders are down, and out. Coming back to neutral, and then our little presses. So stretching my bum back, and then back up again. And again. And up. And 2 more. And up. And last one. And up. Very nice. Coming back into that classic box shape in the middle. Okay. Right. Have a little wiggle. If you need to sit in child's pose for a minute or do anything like that, then please do. Stretch it out. We're going to do a little bit Superman. Oop. So the hair on my, honestly, fringe, yeah. Fringe when I'm trying to teach, definitely no. I've forgotten. need a hair grip. So I'm in my nice box shape. I'm going to move slightly back so I don't hit my hand on the wall. So I'm rolling my shoulders round so I've got a nice long neck, and I'm thinking about what this shape is here. So just have a little wiggle, a little tilt of your pelvis until you find what you feel like is somewhere between a really flat back and a really curved back, like your neutral position. So you could have your cup of tea just there, and it's a perfect spot right on the base of your spine. Okay, so you've got a couple of options. You can either draw your opposite finger and toe out and keep it in contact with the floor, or you can draw it out and lift on the end. So we've all done this exercise quite a few times, so you should feel quite confident. So I'm stretching out, tracing a line, and really, if you are lifting, then imagine you're being slightly pulled from your middle finger right the way down into your big toe, and then drawing it back in. So we're going to keep doing those. You can absolutely work in your own time. If you're not lifting, you can still get that feeling of length from the middle finger to the big toe going across the body. So don't worry, just thinking about as if you're being tugged by your hand and by your foot. We're thinking about our breathing, then we're breathing in as we extend, out as we lift. So really concentrating, keeping everything still. Drawing that arm right up by the ear if you can. And really thinking about keeping your pelvis super still. Drawing that belt in by another notch. Drawing that pelvic floor up, just thinking about what that feels like from the beginning of the class. And just getting that extra engagement. Remembering that it's all good and well trying to engage your core, but to be honest, we engage our cores all the time, otherwise you won't be able to stand up. So there's no such thing as a weak core unless you cannot stand up because you're made of jelly. You just sometimes need a little bit of extra strength, but there's no such thing as a weak one. We're going to do one more on each side. Think about where your shoulders are. Think about that cup of tea. Gently encouraging that tummy in by the belt. Last one. Lovely. And then we're going to take a nice circle of the hips. Nice and slow and flowing in one direction and in the other direction. You do another one of those. I don't know what it is about doing these hip swings, but I just think they feel really nice. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I think they find really good release and really good relaxing, especially in the pelvic floor. Okay, good. Good. Got one more up here like this. We're just going to do some knee lifts. So you've got an option of either just lifting your knee by like an inch, or if you're feeling brave, you can take it right up like a dog peeing on a tree. Excuse me. So you've got either choice. So I'm going to go for 6 on one side and 6 on the other. Okay. So thinking about this back. So not crunching down and looking towards your knees. Just slightly lifting the chin, so you're definitely looking towards your fingernails, drawing the shoulders down, pulling the belly button in, thinking about where your knees are. They should be traced in a line behind your wrists, and drawing those shoulders back with a little shoulder roll if that helps. So I'm going to do some gentle, either just an inch lift or a swing out, and keeping it there for 6 or swinging for 6. So you're either keeping that knee lifted this whole duration, or you're doing some mobility and moving the hip. We've got 4 more. No, we haven't got 4 more. We've done 4. We've got 1 more. And rest. So we're going to take another little hip swing there to release the lower part of the spine. And back the other way to do the same thing on the other side. So you're either just holding that lift of the knee an inch above the mat, we're doing 6 swings without putting it down in between. Let's go. 1. So I'm keeping that nice stillness of the pelvis. Thinking about that cup of tea. Thinking about not letting my shoulders disappear in towards my ear. We've got 2 more. And that's my last one. Okay, and resting. All right, very good. We're not going to do too much more because it gains your wrists And also we're going to do some more legs now. So grab your cushion and have a drink. Now's a great time for a drink. One of my children helped themselves to my drink on the way up to bed. So whether I've got any left, I do not know. Oh no, I've got some left. Right, so we're going to go straight onto our sides. We're going to start up on our elbows. So, and I said at the beginning that I was freezing cold and I couldn't get warm. So I've turned my heating up to about 11 billion degrees and I'm right next to a radiator. I'm not cold anymore. I'm definitely not cold. Lava is the sort of word I'm thinking of right now, to be quite honest. So I'm in my, we're going to do, I like to call this sequence my Jane Fondas, as I've been teaching this sequence of leg exercises forever and ever. So I'm making sure I'm nicely stacked. We all know what we mean by stacked. There's a nice space between my shoulder and my ear. I'm lifting up on the elbow, got my cushion for comfort. You can either rest your hand here. If you're feeling brave, you can put it behind your ear or on your hip. I'm going to keep my hand there. So I put the seatbelt on for safety. And I'm just gently lifting and lowering that top leg. So there's a few options if you want to increase it in intensity. You can just flex that working leg. And if you want to go a little bit harder, you can just rotate it so your ankle is rotating, so your big toe is pointing slightly down towards the mat and the heel is leading. But whatever you're doing, we're sitting nice and tall in here. And if you think about imagining that there's like a Malteser or a blueberry, just at that point where your hip meets the mat, it just helps you to lift up a little bit more, right down there towards the lower part of your core. It's quite a good feeling. Well, you know, good as in ow, which isn't a good feeling, but you know what I mean. Like, oh yeah, there's an extra little muscle down there that I forgot I had. Very nice. So just letting it float up and down. You can definitely feel it in the outside of my leg right now, about here. So without resting in between, we're going to go straight into our little M&Ms. So I'm doing an M shape forward and an M shape backwards. And as I come back, rather than closing my legs on top of each other, I take it slightly behind. So forward, forward, back, behind, forward, forward, back, behind. So obviously, depending on how big your bouncing M's are, the arc of your M's is going to determine how that's feeling. Nice deep breaths. Don't slouch. Think about that little Malteser right down by where your hip meets the mat. We're going to do 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and excellent. Oh, give it a little squeeze. I was going to go straight into circles then, and then I realised that that would be very mean. So give it a little squeeze, give it a little shake. We are going to do a few little circles, but we're not going to go straight away yet. Oh, because that just came. I'm going to bend my supporting leg, my underneath leg as well, just to give myself some extra support for here, so I'm not getting too tired. And I'm just going to draw some little circles. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and send it back the other way. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh my God, it's enough circles, I think. Oh, I hope you can feel that as much as I am today. It's not just me. Right, I'm going to go into full-on relaxation mode. Oh, I might just lie here for a minute next to the radiator whilst I sweat profusely. Okay, I'm bringing that working leg on top to have a rest. That's a good opportunity to give your upper part of your quads and your hands a bit of a rub. So, we haven't done this bit in the last couple of weeks, so I thought it was nice to revisit. So we're thinking about the pelvic floor and your glutes and the very, very top part of your inner thigh all joining together in a workforce. Squeeze and make that long dead leg, the leg that's gone to sleep on the floor, this one, do a bit of moving. And remembering that everyone is really different. So I just want you to do this in your own time. Try and relax in your shoulders. You might find that if you just rest your hand on your hip, that your shoulder is less inclined to crawl into your ear. And just gently squeezing and thinking about what happens if you squeeze just your pelvic floor. What happens if you squeeze just your glutes? How does that feel? What happens if you squeeze just the inner part of the thigh? So you're really trying to work out what's happening with each of those parts of the body. and then letting them team together. So we breathe in as you release and breathe out as you squeeze. And in as you release and out as you squeeze. So this is a really good one. I know I say it every time we do it, but it's surprising how this sort of an exercise can really help if you've got lower back problems, pelvic floor problems, the two of which are very much combined. Even if you don't have a problem with leaking or anything like that, if you can have a weak pelvic floor without any of those side effects, and it can really affect your lower back. We're going to do a couple more. This will be your last one. And relax. Have a nice little moment of full-on relaxation. So we're going to sit ourselves up to be cross-legged. So I'm going to grab my book to sit on, or you might like to be quite happy to sit on your cushion. Be careful when you're coming up. Take your time to come up to sitting. I like to sit cross-legged, but you might prefer to sit. You can sit kneeling, or you can sit with your legs dead out in front. Well, actually, I don't like sitting cross-legs, but I sort of do if I'm sat on Tina Turner. Kind of works for me. So, I am not going to cross my legs by my ankles. I'm going to cross my legs by my shins, because that's also a bit more comfortable. Okay, right. So we're going to do our barn door ones today. So as we're sitting like so, just rest your hands on your knees, palms down, palms up, however you feel good. Draw your shoulders down. Take a nice deep breath in and out. Close your eyes for me, and just gently, however you're sitting, whether you're kneeling, legs outstretched, just have a little play with where you think your centre of gravity is. So we know we've done this loads of times standing up, like where you sway forwards and backwards. And just find that moment where you feel like gravity is actually holding you up and it's not you anymore. And when you're there, then we'll work through the arms. So we're drawing your elbows in towards your waist, brace of your rib cage, and we're closing the barn doors and then opening them as far as you can, squeezing the shoulder blades together. And then as they close, try to make sure that you change which hand goes on top each time. So we're getting a nice even movement. Think about that chin being rested on a shelf and maybe slightly tucking it down just so that we're getting a nice length in the back of the neck. Really let those shoulders open. I find that with each opening of the doors, I can just go a tiny little millimetre more. It's such an unusual movement. We don't ever do this, but it's quite a good one. Excellent. We're going to do 4 more of those. And as you open them, really thinking of squeezing the shoulder blades together and opening up the chest. So I've got 2 more. And then we're going to open the barn doors and do a little lift and bring them in and close and open and a little stretch. So really being really disciplined with the action. Imagine you've got a little tray in each hand. You've got a cup of tea in each hand now. And I'm pulling, this action comes from my elbows. My elbows draw in to the right in the middle, into my waist. And as they extend, they're definitely getting to shoulder height. We're going to do 3 more. Lengthening out through the middle finger, long arms, long back, lovely length in the neck. Do 1 more for good luck. Lovely. And just let the hands rest. Give your shoulders a little roll. I'm going to have a little twist one way, look over my shoulder. And then come back through the centre and do the same thing. So I'm just taking hold of my knee, having a little look over my shoulder, using that moment to get some rotation in the spine. Right, we get to do the legs on the other side. Yippee! So, these we're not using Tina as a weight today. That was hardcore last week, but I quite liked it. Right, down I go onto my elbow, stacking up beautifully. Knees on top of each other, hips on top of each other. Just finding that, perfect alignment. There we go. I feel like my shoulder's in the right place. I've got my seatbelt on, but remember you can put your fingers behind your ears if you'd like. And imagining is about there, that point where your hip is making contact, and then that's the last bit of contact. That's where you've got a little Maltese or a blueberry. And you've just got that feeling of you don't want to squash it. And you'll feel that just engages something right down here. So I'm doing some little lifts of this top leg. So long neck, squeezing as I press that foot down and not letting my feet meet. Remember, if you flex that top foot, then that's going to intensify a little bit. And if you rotate it, it's going to intensify a little tiny bit more. Okay, so remember, we're trying not to be all seesaw-like. So I'm thinking about lifting up all the way along here. Thinking about that little Malteser. Trying to not let my shoulders crawl into my ears. Such a lot to think about. And of course you've got to breathe as well, because otherwise you'll die. So don't do that. That's lovely, really nice and control. Keep lifting up, keep pulling those shoulders down away from your ears. Great. And then we really start to feel it. Oh yeah. And then we start to do our M's. So I go forwards and back, behind. So this is when it's really hard to keep the upper part of the body nice and still. You've got to work super hard to keep the upper half of the body still. Especially if you've chosen to have your fingertips behind your ears. So the bigger those bounces, the more intensely you're going to feel it. So take nice deep breaths as you can feel it. As we do the last few. That's it. 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 and give that a little squeeze. And then we'll very quickly get into our circles. And then we can rest and have some fun with the pelvic floor, which is much more relaxing. So lifting up, and we'll just do a few. So about the size of dinner plates. So keeping this nice and lifted, think about that little Malteser. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and reverse it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh my Lord. That feels very, very intense today. I'm going to blame the vaccine. Okay, time to get comfortable. Okay. So let that top leg just relax, get yourself really comfortable. I would suggest, like I said, resting underneath your forearm on your hips so that your shoulders don't crawl in towards your ears. And when you're ready, this is a good one to do with your eyes closed as well. So we're just thinking about squeezing the pelvic floor, squeezing the tops of the legs, squeezing your glutes. Have a little go. Don't worry if that leg, the long leg doesn't do anything at all. That's all right. Hopefully, as we progress, or even now, maybe the first time we did this, you didn't really get any action out of the bottom leg. And today you can maybe feel a little bit of something, a little bit of a shake, a little tiny bit of a lift, anything at all. But do not worry if you don't feel anything, because you're working the deep, deep, deep muscles. So just this squeezing and the release is just as important. So make sure you really release as you breathe in. Really squeeze as you breathe out. That's nice and relaxed. We'll do a few more of those in your own time. Very nice before we go and lie on our back. So a couple more. And I promise, I think I said this on the group, that I will, all of the classes I've been doing, and we've been doing since the new year, we've recorded. I just needed to edit them because there's a lot of rubbish that goes on at the beginning before you lot get on. And then I'm going to put them on our YouTube channel so that you've got access to them. And you can do Pilates every day if you want, for free. Okay, so when you've done that last one, we're going to take ourselves onto our backs now. So do make sure you have another drink if you feel like you need one. And then very carefully, keeping your cushion there for comfort, just make your way onto your back. So take your time. Okay. So, I like this bit. It feels very nice to lie on your back like this. I don't get to do it very often, do we? Well, I don't think so. You think in my job, maybe I would. But not in a school hall, no thank you very much. Don't need peas in my toes. So I'm drawing my shoulder blades down into the base of my spine. And I'm just letting my body relax into the mat just now. So don't concern yourself too much with your alignment and where your feet are. Just take a moment to relax. Obviously, we'll do some more relaxation very shortly. But just take a moment, and then when you feel ready, start to draw your feet into that nice parallel position. So it's about the space of an orange between your knees, and we imagine the same as between your feet. And if you're not sure, just lift your chin and have a little look. And your heels should be about a hand's distance away from your bum. And we're thinking about those heels being more in line with the inside of your leg, the inside of the hip, than the outside. So that would be the outside, and we're sort of going with the inside. So we think about that lovely triangle, my Bermuda triangle. So you've got your pubic bone as your base point, and then your hip bones on the top. And just do some nice pelvic tilts to send each point, we'll send the pubic point right down, really hyperextending that lower curve, and then drawing your belly button in, slightly tilting your and lifting your bum to send it back the other way. So getting some lovely movement and some mobility in the lower part of the spine. And as you work through those two shapes, just find where you feel like your middle ground is. Think about how your rib cage is nicely relaxed into the mat, and the bottom rib and your hip bone are connected on each side, and they're just drawn towards each other ever so slightly. So LP always used a lovely imagination that you had a piece of string that was attached from your bottom rib to your hip, and those pieces of string were just being drawn, pulled towards each other, like the pulley cord on a blind, like you're drawing them in towards each other. So there's still a bit of a natural curve in the lower part of the back. We're not forcing anything into the mat, but that's a lovely imprint into the mat. So we're going to do some dead bugs today, and then we're going to do some little knee curls. So I'm going to take my feet up to tabletop. So remembering that you're very welcome to leave 1 foot flat on the floor if having both in tabletop is too much for you, and maybe do 6 or 7 on one side and then on the other, whatever works for you. I'm taking my hand straight up towards the ceiling, and then from my hip, I'm taking my toe down and my hand above my head to tap on the floor, and then drawing it back in. So it's not this, where my knee is doing the action. The action is coming from my hip, drawing down. So you're aiming towards the end of your mat-ish. So I'm doing one side and the other. So remember, you can just do one leg if you need some extra support for your back. So don't worry about that. Try and really keep that Bermuda triangle really still. That cup of tea's waiting for you. Nice and still. And if we're concentrating on the breathing, we're breathing out on the down, in on the up. So nice and controlled. Nice and slow. Keeping that cup of tea super still, and letting all the movement come from your hip. So I'd say we've probably got about 4 more. So if you're doing one leg and then the other, as in keeping one flat on the floor, you should definitely have swapped over by now. So have a little swap if you've not, and maybe do a few more. This is the last one. Bring the knees in towards the chest and have a little rest. Nice deep breath in. And then I'm going to just keep hold of one knee and stretch the other leg out across the mat. And we're going to do some little knee squeezes. So really easily, just switching one knee for the other. And if you'd like to work a little bit harder, a bit more intensely, just take the head and shoulders off of the mat, looking down the body. So you can tuck your chin in towards your chest, but not quite making contact. So it's like a little satsuma under your chin. And you're just stretching that leg out, hovering above the mat. Nice deep breaths. Keeping it nice and easy, nice and slow. If it gets too much, then try to keep going with the legs, but just rest your head and shoulders back onto the mat. I'm going to do 5 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bringing both knees in again. Releasing your head and shoulders back onto the mat. And then just take your hands above your head and let your legs, send them away into a nice full body stretch. Very good. Right, we're going to do one more here. So I'm going to take my feet back so they're flat on the mat again. Fingertips behind the ears. Oh yeah, it was definitely the press ups. I can really feel it on my shoulders. It serves me right for trying to be clever and doing loads of press ups. That's what happens when you teach teenage boys and you've got a point to prove. You know, it worked because I beat them, but today I'm not so clever. So I'm going to interlink my fingers just gently behind, just on the top of my neck. And I'm gently curling my body up, peeling off of the mat, looking down through my knees. Take a breath. And curling back down again. And again, breathe in. Breathe out and curl up. Nice, flat. Think about where that cup of tea would be on your Bermuda Triangle. And back down. We're going to do 5 more of those in your own time. So really curling up the body. Actually, we did this a couple of weeks ago with the strap, didn't we? It was quite good with the strap, I remember. You had the strap behind your head. And I remember it made me really feel like I could just get that little tiny bit more and get a really nice curved shape. Maybe we'll do some more strap action next week. I did look up, I was researching, you could do a whole class which uses a strap. So maybe we'll do some more next week because it's quite fun having a bit of a prop. That's the theatrical person in me. That's my last one. Oh gosh, yeah, I can really feel that right at the top there where my diaphragm is. That top part of my core, my centre. Hands above the head, legs far away, just have a relax. Oh, have a moment. We'll have a bit of a stretch now and then we'll do a tiny little relaxation to finish us off nicely before I can go and have my cup of tea that I obsess about for the whole class. I hope I make you obsess as well. So I'm going to start off by very carefully just bringing that knee straight in, giving it a little squeeze. Really drawing that knee in as far as I can. It's almost as if I'm trying to get it into my armpit. So I'm getting some length in this hip flexor here, nice and easy. Just give it a little circle as well. Loosen that up. And then opposite hand to shin, pulling it across the body. This hand peels out towards the floor and just letting it reach over. And my focus goes away from that bent knee. Relaxing. Take your mind into that part of the spine where the spiral is happening. And imagine seeing it in your mind's eye and just let that spiral go. Feel that nice stretch on the outside of your thigh and into your glute. And then very gently just release the pressure from the hand that's holding on to that shin or the outside of the knee before you gently roll back in. Bring the other knee in. You've got both knees in towards your chest. Give them both a bit of a squeeze before sending that leg away. So now we're bringing the other knee right in towards your armpit. Stretching and lengthening that long leg away, so feeling a bit of some space happening in the front of your hip. Give this one a little circle, a little bit of mobility. And then opposite hand to shin, pulling it right across the body. Shoulder blades stay on the floor, eye line goes away from that knee. Let your mind's eye go into that spiraling part of the spine. And really let the hip go, let the gravity do some work. Try not to resist it. Recognize that you are resisting it. And take a breath. And then let it go. And see how that feeling shifts and changes and where it moves into different parts of your body. Very nice. And then we're going to bring both feet flat onto the mat. Then putting the soles of my feet together, letting my knees relax out towards the side into a lotus stretch. Taking my hands above me, in a parallel above me. And then just lifting my fingers up towards the ceiling to allow my shoulders to come off of the mat. And then letting them sink back down into the mat again. Heavy, heavy, heavy. And again, nice breath in. Breathe out, extend the fingers towards the ceiling. Lifting, stretching. And then letting them melt back down into the mat. Just notice how big your shoulders are when you do that. Quite fantastic. Take a breath in. Lengthening through the fingers. Letting those shoulders gently lift off the mat. And then letting them melt back down again. Let the elbows bend, fingertips resting. Just let your knees have a little jiggle one side to the other like a boat. Have a little rock. And then sending your legs away into a nice stretch and having a little wiggle there. So we're going to take a moment for some relaxation and some gentle mindfulness. So this is your opportunity to get comfortable, find your comfortable place, grab a blanket if you want to, put your jumper back on, have a sip of drink, and find your comfy place. So it doesn't matter how you choose to lie down, it just needs to be your go-to comfortable position. I actually really like lying on my back. I'm one of these fruitcakes that actually sleeps on my back, and I wake up in the morning and I'm just the same. It's really strange. So as I'm lying there, I'm thinking as I'm lying on my back, drawing my shoulders down. Now obviously that's not going to be the case for you if you're choosing to lie on your side or even on your front. So just as you're lying in your chosen position, think about where there is space in your body. Just notice where your shoulders are in relation to your ears and your neck. Just notice whether your feet naturally want to roll out or in. And try and regard whether there's any tension. I think we all hold a bit of tension in our jaw. So give that a bit of a wiggle. Especially if you clench your teeth a lot, especially when you're asleep. Or if you're in a job where you talk a lot. Get a lot of tension in the jaw. And then squeeze your face, really squeeze it up, like give yourself a big frown. Really squeeze it up and then just let it all relax. And let your jaw go again. And as we're beginning to relax and unwind, we can start to take our mind towards our breathing. So just notice as you lie there, without any force, without any breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, just notice how you're breathing. Which part of your body do you breathe into? Do you breathe into your belly? Do you breathe into your ribs, into your lung, into the top of your ribs, into the middle, into the bottom? Like, where do you breathe? I find I'm quite a shallow breather. I tend to breathe right into the top of my chest. And as you start to become more aware of how you're naturally breathing, let's make those breaths a little bit greater. And really start to overemphasize your breathing. So breathing in through the nose, filling your belly, filling your lungs, and then breathing out through the mouth. Really let that breath go. Notice the warmth of the breath as it exits the body, breathing in through the mouth. And out. And maybe if you feel comfortable, and you're obviously at home and you're muted from me, maybe you like to make a noise when you're breathing out, like a really deep sigh. And whatever it is for you, but just take your breathing and really make it exaggerated and feel how nice that feels. Keep thinking about the tension in the jaw as well, and the space in the neck and in relation to the shoulders. Think about all those, that area, it's so important. It works so hard. And the more you breathe, the more relaxed you feel, the more heavy into your mat, the more comfortable, relaxed, at ease you feel. And today, as you've got your eyes softly closed, and you're thinking about that breathing, we're going to take our mind as if you're walking down a nice path. I want you to imagine a path you might have walked along before, a favourite place. Maybe it's through a woodland, maybe it's along a beach, maybe it's by a canal, maybe it's through a field. I really want you to see that walk, see that very definite path in front of you, know where it's going, know what you've left behind. Think about the sounds that you might hear on that walk. Is it water? Is it birds? Is it the breeze? You feel great comfort from seeing that walk in front of you, hearing those sounds, feeling so relaxed and so grateful for being right in this moment on that walk. And as you continue down this path, there's no tension, there's no stress. The further you walk down this path, the further you walk away from any worries, any bad moments you've had this week or this month or this year. The more you keep walking, determined, chin on a shelf, no tension in your shoulder. The more you breathe, the more you fill yourself with gratitude and joy and feeling thankful. I'm feeling proud that you've taken this time today to nourish your body and to nourish your mind. And let that mind wander, keeping on down that walk, down that beautiful path, a favourite place, and see every blade of grass, every cloud in the sky. Be so relaxed, taking nice deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you're breathing in, imagine what you might smell. As you breathe in, is it the sea? Is it water? Is it the green grass? Is it the trees? Is it flowers? Is it all of those things? Is it just that lovely breath of fresh air? And as you keep breathing, just gently start to feel a little tingle in your toes and in your fingers. Just let them gently wiggle. Send your senses back to your toes and your fingers. Notice that you might have a slight smile on your face, that feeling of peace. Take a few more deep breaths. And as our session comes to an end, I thank you for joining me. I know that you don't have to move, that this class will just end very shortly and you can stay exactly as you are for as long as you need. And I would urge you, when you are ready to move, to have a lovely big stretch as if you've just woken up from a really rejuvenating power nap. Pour yourself a lovely large glass of cool water and drink the whole thing, and look forward to a most wonderful night's sleep. So I'm going to give you 3 more breaths before the session will end, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. So we take a nice deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And again, nice deep breath in and breathing out. And 1 more breath in and breathing out.